You know, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about, something that might hit close to home, especially if you're over 60 like me. Have you ever walked into a room and caught a whiff of a smell that's hard to pin down? Maybe it's a little stale, a little musty, and you think, where's that coming from? Or maybe someone's hinted at it, a grandkid pulling away from a hug, or a friend making a quiet comment. If that's happened to you, don't feel bad. You're not alone. In fact, 99% of folks don't even know this smell is a real thing tied to getting older. But here's the good news. You can fix it, and it's easier than you'd think, just by washing one spot properly. Stick with me, because I'm going to share some secrets that'll have you feeling fresh and confident again. Now, I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. I've got a friend in this story, Dr. Henry Thompson. He's a geriatric specialist who's been helping people like us for 50 years. Imagine that, 50 years. He's treated over 10,000 seniors, so when he talks, I listen. Dr. Thompson told me something that really opened my eyes. That smell we're talking about? It's not your fault. It's not about being dirty or lazy. It's just science doing its thing as we age. And once you understand what's going on, you'll see how simple it is to turn things around. Plus, it's not about fancy products or big expenses, just a few tweaks you can do at home. Doesn't that sound like a relief? So, let's get into it. You might be wondering why this smell even happens. I used to think it was just part of getting older, like gray hair or creaky knees, but there's more to it. Dr. Thompson explained it to me like this. As we hit our 60s and beyond, our bodies start changing in little ways we don't always notice. First off, we don't sweat as much as we used to. Back in the day, you'd work up a good sweat mowing the lawn or chasing the kids around, right? That sweat would wash away bacteria on your skin. But now, with less sweat, those bacteria hang out longer, mixing with your skin and making that stale smell. It's not something you can see, but it's happening all the same. Then there's this thing called sebum. Fancy word, I know. Sebum is the oil your skin makes to keep it soft. As we age, that oil changes a bit. It starts mixing with a chemical called non-enal. Don't worry about pronouncing it. Just know that non-enal is what gives off that musty, old book kind of scent. Dr. Thompson says it's like how a damp basement smells if you leave it closed up too long. It's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's just your skin doing what it does now. And here's one more piece. Your saliva. You might have noticed your mouth feels drier these days. Less saliva means odors can stick around in there too, adding to the mix. Crazy, right? 3 little changes: less sweat, funky skin oil, and a drier mouth. And boom, you've got that smell people notice but don't talk about. I'll be honest, when I first heard this, I felt a little embarrassed. Nobody wants to think they've got a smell following them around. But then Dr. Thompson said something that stuck with me. This happens to almost everyone over 65. It's as normal as wrinkles. That made me feel better. It's not about you being careless. It's just biology shifting gears. And the best part, you don't have to live with it. You don't need to buy some $50 cream or spray that promises miracles. Dr. Thompson spent decades figuring out what really works. And it's so simple, you'll wish you'd known it years ago. Take Nancy Miller, for example. She's 72, lives down in Texas, and she told Dr. Thompson her story a while back. Nancy's grandkids used to love piling onto her lap for story time. But over the last few years, they started keeping their distance. She'd lean in for a hug, and they'd squirm away. It broke her heart. She didn't know why until one day her daughter pulled her aside and said, "Mom, it's the smell." Nancy was crushed. She showered every day, used deodorant, everything she thought she was supposed to do. But that smell wasn't going away. She felt like she was losing her family, all because of something she couldn't figure out. Does that sound familiar to you? Maybe you felt that sting too, the way a little distance from the people you love can hurt more than words. But here's where it gets good. Dr. Thompson sat Nancy down and told her exactly what I'm telling you. It's not your fault, and you can fix it. He showed her a few tricks. Nothing complicated, just some spots to wash and a couple of habits to tweak. Within a week, Nancy said her grandkids were back to hugging her tight. She couldn't believe it was that easy. And that's what I want for you too. You deserve to feel good in your own skin, to have your family close without worrying about what they might notice. So, what's the secret? Well, it starts with knowing where that smell hides. And trust me, it's not where you might think. So, you're probably thinking, okay, if this smell isn't my fault, where's it coming from? And how do I get rid of it? That's exactly what I asked Dr. Henry Thompson when we talked. He's the geriatric specialist I told you about, the one who's helped over 10,000 folks like us in his 50 years of work. He leaned in with that warm smile of his and said, "It's all about 3 key spots on your body. Wash them right, and you'll be amazed how fast things change." I couldn't wait to hear more, and I bet you feel the same way. Let's dig into this together, because once you know these spots, you'll have the power to kick that smell to the curb. Dr. Thompson calls them the trouble zones, places where that stale, musty odor likes to hide. First up, your skin folds. You know those spots. Under your arms, maybe around your neck, or even under your chest if you've got a little extra there. Those areas trap sweat and bacteria like a cozy little home. When you don't clean them well, that non-enol I mentioned, the stuff that makes your skin oil smell old, builds up fast. Next, there's hairy areas. Think about your scalp, your underarms again, or anywhere else hair grows. Hair holds on to oils and sweat, giving bacteria a playground to make that smell worse. And third, sweaty spots. Even if you don't sweat like you used to, places like behind your knees, your lower back, or between your toes can still get damp and funky. Dr. Thompson says these 3 zones are the secret hideouts. Miss them, and the smell sticks around no matter how much you shower. Now, here's the trick. You've got to wash them properly. I used to think a quick rinse in the shower was enough, but Dr. Thompson set me straight. Grab some mild soap, nothing fancy, just the stuff you've already got. And warm water, not hot, not cold. Warm's the sweet spot. Take a washcloth and really get into those skin folds, scrubbing gently but thoroughly. Do the same with your hairy areas. Massage that soap in so it cuts through the oil. And don't skip those sweaty spots. Behind your knees might feel silly to wash, but trust me, it makes a difference. Do this every day, and you're hitting that smell where it lives. It's so simple, right? No expensive gadgets or sprays, just soap, water, and a little attention. But Dr. Thompson didn't stop there. He's all about keeping things easy and affordable, and he's got a few more tricks up his sleeve that go beyond the washcloth. One day, he told me, you've got to hydrate from the inside too. He means water. Plain old water. Aim for 6 glasses a day. I know, you're thinking 6, that's a lot. But hear me out. When you drink enough, it flushes out the stuff your body doesn't need, like the toxins that can make you smell off. It's like giving your insides a little rinse. I started keeping a glass by the sink, sipping while I cook or watch TV, and it's not so hard once you get going. Plus, it's free. Can't beat that. Then there's this other gem he shared. Get outside for a light walk in the sun. Even 15 minutes does the trick. You're probably wondering, what's that got to do with smell? Well, sunlight boosts your skin's health. It's like a natural reset button. Plus, a little movement gets your blood flowing, and that helps your body clear out odors too. I've been strolling around my yard lately, waving at the neighbors, and it feels good. Dr. Thompson says it's not about running a marathon, just a gentle walk to keep things fresh. Doesn't that sound doable? I thought so too. And here's one more thing he told me that really clicked. Watch what you eat and drink. Some foods fight that smell, and some make it worse. Load up on antioxidants. Think berries, spinach, maybe a handful of nuts. They help your skin stay strong and cut down on that non-inal stuff. But go easy on coffee and alcohol. I love my morning brew as much as anyone, but too much can dry you out and let odors sneak in. Dr. Thompson says it's not about giving up your favorites, just balancing them out. I swapped one coffee for a glass of water with a splash of lemon, and it's actually pretty nice. Little tweaks like that add up, and they don't cost a dime extra. Take George Carter, for instance. He's 68, lives up in Ohio, and he was one of Dr. Thompson's patients. George told me he used to feel so self-conscious at family dinners. His kids would sit across the table instead of next to him, and he could tell something was off. He tried deodorants, colognes, even those pricey body washes you see on TV. Nothing worked. Then Dr. Thompson showed him these tricks. Washing those 3 spots, drinking more water, taking a walk. George stuck with it, and a couple weeks later, his son plopped down right beside him at the table, grinning like old times. George said it felt like a weight lifted off his shoulders. All it took was a few minutes a day and some simple habits. Can you imagine how good that must have felt? I'll bet you can. You know, hearing about George and how he got his family back around the dinner table really got me thinking. It's not just about the smell itself. It's about what that smell can take away from you. I've seen it too many times, and Dr. Henry Thompson has too. With all those 10,000 patients he's helped over 50 years. That musty odor doesn't just linger in the air. It creeps into your life, pushing people away when you least expect it. But the flip side? When you take control of it, like George did, you don't just freshen up. You bring back the closeness you've been missing. That's what I want you to feel too, and we're almost there. Let's talk about why this matters so much. Imagine you're sitting on the couch, waiting for your grandkids to come over. You've got cookies baked, a story ready to tell. But when they walk in, they hang back by the door instead of running to you. It's not because they don't love you. It's that smell, the one 99% of folks don't even know has a name. Dr. Thompson calls it heartbreaking, and I agree. He told me about James Parker, an 81-year-old from Florida. James used to love taking his daughter out for coffee every Sunday. But one day, she stopped hugging him goodbye. She didn't say why, but he knew. He felt invisible, like he was losing her little by little. That's the real sting. Not just the odor, but the way it builds a wall between you and the people you care about most. James didn't give up, though. He went to Dr. Thompson, feeling pretty low, and asked what he could do. You know what Dr. Thompson told him? The same thing I've been sharing with you. Wash those 3 key spots: skin folds, hairy areas, sweaty spots, with warm water and soap every day. Sip 6 glasses of water to rinse out the inside. Take a short walk in the sun. To keep your skin happy, toss in some berries instead of an extra coffee here and there. James thought it sounded too easy to be true, but he gave it a shot. A week later, he met his daughter for coffee again. She leaned in, wrapped her arms around him, and said, "Dad, you smell like you again." He told Dr. Thompson it was the first hug he'd gotten from her in years. Can you picture that moment? The way his heart must have swelled up? That's not just a win over a smell. That's a win over feeling alone. And it's not just James or George or Nancy. These stories happen all the time. Dr. Thompson says he's seen it thousands of times in his career. Families drift apart because of something as small as an odor nobody talks about, but then they come back together when it's gone. It's like flipping a switch. You don't need to feel embarrassed or stuck anymore. You've got the tools now. Simple, cheap, and straight from someone who's spent half a century figuring this out for folks just like us. Isn't that something to hold on to? Knowing you can change things with a washcloth and a glass of water? Here's what I love about this. It's not about blaming yourself. You didn't cause those body changes. Less sweat, that non-inul in your skin oil, the drier mouth. They just happen as we age. Like the way your eyes need glasses or your hair thins out. But unlike some things we can't fix, this one's in your hands. You don't have to wait for a doctor's appointment or shell out cash for some miracle cure. You can start today, right after we're done talking. Grab that soap, turn on the warm water, and scrub those spots. Fill up a glass and sip it while you're at it. Step outside for a few minutes and let the sun do its work. It's so easy, it almost feels like a trick. But it's not. It's real, and it works. Think about what's waiting for you on the other side. Maybe it's your son sitting closer at the next barbecue. Maybe it's your grandkids piling onto your lap without a second thought. Maybe it's just feeling good when you walk into a room, knowing you're you again, not some smell you didn't ask for. Dr. Thompson told me that's the payoff he sees every day. People getting their confidence back, their families back, their lives back. Nancy's grandkids are reading stories with her again. George is laughing with his kids at the table. James is hugging his daughter every Sunday. That could be you too, starting as soon as tomorrow. So what do you say? You've got everything you need now. You know why that smell happens. It's those 3 little changes in your body. You know where it hides. Those skin folds, hairy areas, and sweaty spots. You know how to beat it. Wash them right, drink your water, walk in the sun, tweak your diet a bit, and you know what's at stake. Not just a fresher you, but the hugs and smiles and moments you've been missing. Dr. Thompson's spent 50 years perfecting this for us, and I've seen it work wonders. You don't have to be part of that 99% who don't know anymore. You're in on the secret now, and it's yours to use.